A lot of the kids today may not have as much fun as Daniel had during his time. One time we were playing South Johnston, which was our main rival. I didn't know this at the time before the game, because if I had, he wouldn't have played. But we went down to play them, and the conference championship was on the line. We were tied for first place, and whoever won that game won the conference championship. And he had pneumonia in one of his lungs. He went out and just pitched probably one of the best games you could ever ask a kid to pitch, fully healthy or not. And we beat him like 3-1, and he also drove in the run that won the game. There's some really knowledgeable people and people that are, really care about Wake Forest high athletics, and they put a lot of time and a lot of thought into the process of getting nominations. Athletics, what you put into it. If you put your heart and soul and all your energy into it, then you're going to reap those rewards.
Amanda had a heart condition that basically she had to battle through her whole career in high school. She would feel, nauseous, faint. And this was especially times when she would be in highly competitive modes. So when I think of a time that defines her, I always think about the time her junior year where she actually had an episode or a case where, the condition got to her and made her feel faint and she couldn't compete. And I just remember the way she responded to that, her disappointment in her face, the way that she was just like, I could have won this meet, and that whole summer and that whole off season, she came back the next year, just that more determined and focused, and and to be able to come back from that something like that was physical, that she could not control at all, and not make any kind of excuses, but just go back and work, and seeing her come back her senior year and become state champion. I always think about that and I find myself telling my athletes today that story. They train constantly all around the clock, year round, and when you do that and you're that committed, like Amanda was, and you're that exceptional, and you rise above those year-round swimmers, that means you're something special. So by the end of her senior season, she was the best swimmer in the state, and it was her work ethic, because everybody there is talented, but there is something that separates you at that level, and that's working constantly every day, because everybody there is working. But to separate yourself from the best, that just goes to show that she was just a tremendous athlete and just exceptional on every level.
I remember following the team when I was in college and hearing about Romas scoring the winning touchdown at the end of the game against Fuquay. They kicked off to us with about 10 seconds left, and I think DeMarcus Jones actually received the kickoff and pitched it back to Romas, and Romas broke a couple of tackles and scored the winning touchdown. The thing about Romas that I can remember, he loved the game of football and basketball, sports in general, but he just had such a great passion to do well, to play hard, and he always wanted to be the best. He was determined to be that guy that was going to lead his team, and I think more athletes today can take that from him and use that as something that they can encourage them to do as well in high school.
Eric walked into Wake Forest High School as a 6'8", 288-pound, 15-year-old freshman. And he took his academics very seriously. He knew that basketball was going to get him to college in the sense that it was going to pay for it. The thing that students today can emulate from Eric is compassion. Eric loved his peers, and as his notoriety grew, he did not want anyone to feel that they were beneath him. He didn't want anyone to feel left out. He wanted everyone to enjoy the moment, enjoy the notoriety, enjoy the attention. He loved being with his classmates. He loved hugging his classmates. He loved speaking to his classmates. He loved having them in the stands and being able to run over to them and high five and shake their hands. I mean, just the compassion that he had for other people, I think, is what I would love to see people emulate the most about him.
And with Alicia and talking to all the other coaches from the conference and talking to her coach, Coach Anderson, the best thing about her is her athleticism. Just how strong she was, how technical she was, but she was an athlete and a player. Sometimes you just get an athlete. She was a combination of both. So from Coach Worley from Sanderson, I remember being in the meeting and he said, hands down, she's the best player in the state. Quote from him is, if she was on anybody else's team, she'd be state player of the year, and that team would instantly become the front runner for the state championship. She was that good. According to her coaches and teachers and other teammates, she was positive with them. She worked hard, and she didn't quit. She just kept going. The demeanor in school was great. So I think just being an overall person is what I want my girls to learn from her. Is great student, kind and caring to others. Teachers loved her, behaved, worked hard, was a leader for the team. So all of those characteristics together is what made her great and what I want my players to become more like her.
Let's see, my freshman year, Hurricane Hugo was coming through, and I'll never forget it. This was my freshman year. We were playing Harnett Central, which is on the other side of the earth. And we were playing on a Thursday night, and I'll never forget that Hurricane Hugo was coming in, and the referees had gotten there early, and we had to start 30 minutes early, and we had offsides penalties galore because nobody could hear because of the wind. We ended up winning that ball game, and I just remember that very vividly. And him not changing demeanor one bit. I mean, he was steady as a rock. He was loyal to the program and to the school. He was a guy that knew the plan and knew the message that the varsity coaches wanted to give out to the younger kids, and he was great at developing young talent to be ready for Friday nights. As a JV football coach, he always taught me, because he was the one who really kind of taught me at that level to really keep it simple. Get down to the basics of what the varsity wants, to train these kids up, things that you know that they're going to take to the next level of football, and really drill it, and be very methodical in what you're doing, and that's something that I take, and parts of my practice plan is how it's structured. A lot of it is what he used to do, especially towards the end of the year, trying to get the kids to compete more and more and keep them interested, so they're excited about next year. Continuity, that was one thing that Coach Richards did. Is, I mean, he coached a number of us that are on staff. So his legacy of being a steady constant there, knowing what important role he played. And now granted, he's so very humble about it, but he laid a foundation that the varsity coaches built upon, like Coach Harrison, Coach Hales, and then of course eventually Coach Lucas as well. I mean, it's just been it's something that I feel like was very important to the development of this program where it is now, and it's kind of like the cornerstone of the foundation of who we are.
Coach Richard was very passionate. I remember him being very loyal to our varsity coach, Rock Harrison. Had a close relationship with him, and was a coach that cared about his players and allowed us to be ourselves, and was able to go out and enjoy the game of football. The thing that I remember most about Coach Richards is that he believed in us as players. He gave us the confidence to go out on Thursday night to compete against other teams and feel like we would have a chance to win. And he would help any player on the team, not just a star athlete. So I try to do that same thing in my program, not just to cater to the ones that's going to score the touchdowns or the ones that are more athletic, but I try to cater to all the players and make sure they feel like they're a part of the team as well. Having a guy to run your JV program like Coach Richards is valuable. In fact, it's the backbone to your varsity team. He really develops the players before you get the players, so you have to trust a guy like him. And Coach Richards was dedicated for over 20 years, so he did a great job with our JV program and developing the players. And that's what I look for in my JV coach today in Glendon Dillard, and he does a great job as well.
one of the things I remember the most is how organized Coach was. So he would get down there to practice, and he would break out this big index card, and he would have written on there the practice schedule, not just from that year, the previous year too, because he saved the card. And he would stand out there during warm-ups, and he'd look through it, and he would have everything set out that he needed to do, and he'd make notes, mental notes, based on what he saw in that particular practice. And at first I just thought he was just a super organized guy. But what I came to realize when I started coaching is that you really need to know where you want to be at the end of the season. Not just, I hope we make the playoffs. Like, you need to have a knowledge of what your players need to do when you get to a conference tournament and the playoffs. And you need to reverse engineer from that point. And I think Chuck was an expert at doing that. He understood, from having coached soccer and basketball for a lot of years, that there was a talent set he needed his teams to have. And he would come down with his organized practice plan, and he'd get to know the kids because they're different every year. And he'd realize what he needed to do and what he needed to move around so that they would be to the best that they could be at the end of the season where he wanted them to be. And that always impressed me, and then I took that away and used that myself.
Coach Hess always said, good coaching is good teaching. And yeah, he arranged the season just like I would arrange a semester in my course. There are different points in the course where different things unfold and you plan for. And Coach saw the preseason, he saw the conference, he saw the run up to the playoffs, and he really built the teams up like that. The other thing I remember about his practices is they were long.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, 7 o'clock, and we would be there 1 o'clock sometimes. But those extra days we put in, that was field time working set plays that made a difference. I'll remember, like Jeff said, how organized he was. He had a vision, and he had very high expectations for everybody. And but he also, he provided help to get there. He didn't just yell, He told you how to move your body. He told you how to see the field. He taught you to think. So that's what I'll remember. He was a teacher, great teacher.
Coach just didn't play around. I mean, he was intense. He expected greatness out of you. But he did it in such a way that, number one, he taught you what you needed to do so that when you found yourself in a tough situation on the field or on the court, you knew what to do. You could think. He taught you how to think. It's not rote memorization. He taught you how to think when things unfolded in front of you on the court or on the field. He empowered you so that when you found yourself in that situation, you knew what to do. Your defense doesn't get better if you don't pressure them in practice so that you can pause and talk to them about how they're set up. And your offense doesn't get better in practice if they're not playing against a committed
That's right.
defense.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Coach had a whole arsenal of ways to get people to
Yeah.
practice at game mode.
Yeah.
And I loved those and used those with my own athletes later.
It came from the heart from Coach. He struggled academically as a young person, and he's just got an amazing work ethic. He had very supportive parents who hung in there with him, and but I think he saw a little bit of himself in these students, and he knew that he was able to overcome some real challenges, and I've got to believe that inspired him to want to see students do the same thing. He wanted every student to achieve. And it wasn't a slogan for him. He saw every student as an individual person with potential. He worked with the United Cerebral Palsy Foundation for a long time. And I'd have to look in my notes, I don't have those in front of me. But he was the National Volunteer of the Year for the United Cerebral Palsy Foundation. And that's an amazing honor.
It is
And just another tribute of the kind of guy that Coach Hess was. He walked the walk and he cared. And that's why he's here. It's a funny thing to say, but some people have an extraordinary ability to change others around them for the good or for the best. And he did that in so many ways.